Strange Brew Podcast, Season 1, Episode 383. Brewers get a series win when their starting pitching was not good against a decent team on the road and in the middle of the stretch of games they're in. No days off until the All-Star break. I think you got to feel really good about the series win. They did not play well, really, in any of the three games. We got the bad Brandon Woodruff injury news. We'll talk about that. But able to rally on Sunday, hang on for a 3-2 win. Any series win right now with this stretch of games and this brutal schedule, you take it 100 times out of 100. So we'll talk about that. We will talk about the All-Star selections. That was announced over the weekend as well. Every other good team in the NL got 5 All-Stars. The Brewers got 2. We know that, though. That's a role we have played to some critical acclaim in the past, where you have a really good team, but you're not going to get that many guys in. The Miz is an All-Star, a lot less controversially this year, and William Contreras is an All-Star. Bryce Terang probably leads the list of snubs. We'll discuss that as well as we go over the series against Arizona. And, yeah, the Woodruff injury news was a real letdown over the weekend. And clearly an emotional moment for him, too, on Saturday. I think he was brushing away tears on Saturday as he was taken off the mound. We will go over all of that. We will talk a little bit about the NBA Summer League getting underway. Our boy Boob Jug, Bogolyub Markovic, he signed the 4-year contract. We talked about that last Thursday. Summer League started Saturday. He did not play Sunday. He played Saturday, and he led the way, 16.6 rebounds. He is a bit of a traffic cone defensively, but as we talked about on Thursday, he is thicker, he has put on more muscle, and offensively against, again, Summer League competition, looked really good. But yeah, he's a ways away defensively. We will go over that. And I do want to play you a couple of clips. I know we talked about this on Thursday. The Malik Beasley gambling story in the NBA that traces its roots to his time in Milwaukee and games that he wasn't fixing necessarily, but overs and unders and player props on himself that he was trying to hit. There was a really good video breakdown of one of those games in January of 2024. I just want to play a little bit of that, and we'll talk about some Monday night football, the U.S. and Belgium, and Trump getting involved in the Flo Balogun overturn of his suspension tonight. We'll talk about that, too. Let's go.
On the ground, a chance here. Durham to Hardy to first. In time! Yes! The Brewers win! Yes!
Here comes Melvin to the 25, to the 20, Gordon 15, 10, 5, touchdown! Wisconsin! Record-breaking run!
Morgan a smash up the middle, base hit to center. Here comes Gomez around third. A throw and the Brewers win!
Here's the snap. He looks, he throws, it's complete interception. And there is your Super Bowl dagger.
Booker the drive, gets inside, leans in, knocked away and stolen by Holiday. Phoenix has to foul, and a pinnacle ball throws it down. Swinging fly ball in the right center. Broxton is there, and they're the champions. They have done it. It's been a 50-year journey. Wisconsin, we've got a room at the top of the world tonight. The Milwaukee Bucks are NBA champions.
Yeah, welcome in Monday morning. Like, rate, subscribe if you can. Give us some kind of rating, however you consume us on iHeart. Like we've talked about, I think the only place that you can't do that is if you just listen to it on the B93 website. But if it's iHeart or iTunes or Spotify, like I've said, Spotify, that's kind of my go-to for all the podcasts I listen to. For the Schadenfreude podcast, the Bill Simmons podcast I listened to over the weekend about the Jaylen Brown trade and how the Celtics got 10 cents on the dollar for their superstar Jaylen Brown after that trade with Giannis didn't go through. So, however you consume us, like, rate, subscribe, share it if you can. Let people know, hey, I'm listening to a podcast. Everybody loves that when you start a conversation like that, right? You looking for a podcast to listen to? But if somebody in your life is somebody that consumes podcasts and is into Wisconsin sports, let them know about this. And if you can, again, like, rate, and subscribe. And don't forget the email, too, is strangebrewpod@AOL.com. We're going to do at least one more mailbag episode before the summer is out. Strangebrewpod, all one word, at AOL.com. Strangebrewpod@AOL.com. We are going to start today with, like I said, Monday Night Football. Calm down, Greg. It's soccer. Where is it? Did I not turn the right button on? Hold on. Off to a hot start on a Monday. Here we go.
Evan, we're down 2 points.
Calm down, Greg. It's soccer. It's soccer.
Somebody did put together, this kind of got me jacked up because it is Monday night and they're playing it in Seattle, which I don't know if Belgium knows what they're in for here. Belgium fans are already upset about the Flo Balogun story. We'll talk about that in a second and how Trump got involved in this whole thing. And Balogun, who was going to be suspended for tonight's game, is now available, although there's another appeal I think that Belgium can put forth. There's an appeal that can come down here, I think within the next hour or so, 5 o'clock a.m. Pacific time. I think we've already passed that. So if they wanted to submit another appeal, they could do that. I don't know when we'll find out what the result of that is. But somebody put together an old Monday Night Football intro for tonight's U.S.-Belgium matchup. And this did kind of get me jacked up. Monday Night Football in Seattle, and already you've got the controversy around Flo Balogun. I don't think the Belgians know what they're in for. Tonight. Who was that replacement official? What was his name? The captain of that squad, and then he wrote a book about it.
Good evening and welcome to Seattle, Washington. On a beautiful summer night in the Pacific Northwest under the lights at Lumen Field, the road to the World Cup quarterfinals runs through the Emerald City. And tonight, it's Monday Night Soccer.
Yeah.
Romelu Lukaku and Belgium's Red Devils take on Christian Pulisic and the Stars and Stripes of the United States of America. 90 minutes, one winner, a place in the FIFA World Cup quarterfinals. Kickoff is next.
It does kind of get you going. I wanted them to put, like, the two logos down, like the helmets, and they bash against each other. That did get me jacked up. Is it called kickoff? Is that what it is? I guess I never really learned that. Is that how you say the start of a match? I've just said, when I've been doing sportscasts and I've mentioned this in them, I always just say the match starts at whatever time. Is it called the kickoff like it is in the NFL? But that is tonight. The replacement official, by the way, was Lance Easley. Remember Lance Easley? What a moment in Seattle in 2012, a moment that will live in infamy. And then, he wrote a book about it. He tried to cash in on it, too. I hope he made no money on that book. He probably made money on the book. Lance Easley. But Monday night in Seattle, the U.S. and Belgium tonight with the right to go to the quarterfinal round on the line. As we talked about in the last podcast, if the U.S. wins tonight, it will be their first trip to the quarterfinal round in the World Cup since 2002. 1930 is their best finish. I think we talked about that a couple of podcasts ago. It was a totally different situation back then. There weren't nearly as many teams, and the U.S. did take part in the third place game that year. That's their best finish all time, but this would be the farthest they've gone in 24 years since that summer of 2002. And I think they lost to Germany that year in the quarterfinal round. But the subplot over the weekend was the Flo Balogun subplot. Now, didn't we talk about on Thursday about Trump and the DOJ, and you wonder if he'll get involved here? Because what hasn't he gotten involved in? Will he get involved in this? You go back to, what was it then? Was it last week Thursday? Or last week Wednesday? I forget what night it was where they beat Bosnia. Wednesday, I think. In the round of 32. Now, Flo Balogun is a massive player on this team and a big part of the success they've had, and they want to continue to have. So this is a significant player. Scored a goal, the first goal in that game against Bosnia, had one wiped away, then scored one later, and then he got that red card in minute 64 in the second half. And as I said, I don't claim to know. This is just the eye test from somebody who watches a handful of soccer matches every 4 years. It didn't seem like it rose to the level of red card where, yes, he stepped on an opposing player's ankle and turned it pretty badly, but it looked mostly incidental. It didn't look like there was anything nefarious going on there. And in soccer, you never know. I know I watch the NBA, so I'm very accustomed to flopping. And I understand that as an NBA fan, me complaining about soccer players flopping is probably going to fall on deaf ears. It is ridiculous, though. I know they're stealing time. I know that's the whole point of it. You get hit. You're trying to sell them on a red card instead of a yellow or a yellow card instead of a whatever. You're trying to up the ante there. And then you're also, a part of the reason for flopping is, I think, in these really hot conditions and you're running around for an hour and a half, you're trying to steal a little bit of extra time for yourself, for your teammates, and try to give everybody a breath for 30 seconds or 45 seconds. There is strategy to it, as annoying as it is. But that guy went down. It just didn't look like. And every soccer blog or every podcast or every soccer follow on Twitter I've had in the last couple of weeks seem to agree that did not rise to the level of the red card. Now, with the red card, not only did the U.S. have to play a man down then for most of the second half and stoppage time on Wednesday against Bosnia, that means that you're not going to have that player for the next matchup. And I guess that is tale as old as time. That is one of those things in the history of the World Cup where you get suspended if you get a red card, you can't play the next game, and almost never does that ever get overturned. A handful of times, I think Ronaldo had one overturned. They had a list of 4 or 5 all time where it's happened. But it is exceedingly rare that they would overturn that and allow that player to play the next game. But enter, I feel like we've got to play the NWL theme music. I don't know why. But enter Donald J. Trump in the middle of the America 250 celebration with the wild firework display in Washington, D.C., and they were waiting out the weather all day. He placed a phone call to the head of FIFA. And I don't know if were tariffs threatened. I don't know. Tariffs, bombings, who knows? I don't think any of that happened, but it was suggested to the head of FIFA. I mean, this is just the perfect Donald Trump picking up the phone. It was suggested that perhaps they should look at this. Perhaps FIFA should give a hard look at what actually happened on that play and determine whether or not Balogun should actually be suspended for this game against Belgium. And FIFA came down yesterday and said they're overturning it. They're overturning the suspension. So Balogun is going to be allowed to play tonight. This, of course, because of the Trump involvement and because of how rare it is that these things get overturned. International soccer, every other country's fan pages, international soccer is at its wits' end, just having a meltdown on social media, which has been a joy to watch as well. And Belgium in particular, all the Belgian fan pages are saying, how could this possibly happen? Which for me, if I'm Belgium, don't you want to beat the team at their best strength, playing their best at their healthiest? If I were Belgium, I would have refused to play the game if Flo Balogun couldn't play. I don't want to beat this team and they don't have their best player out there. If there was any integrity in Belgian soccer, they would have withdrawn from the matchup to begin with. But a lot of Belgian fans are not happy that now the U.S. gets one of their best players back when it looked like that he should have been suspended. I did see some Belgian fan page that was saying we should boycott the game on Monday. We should not play. Oh, that'll show us. Give us a forfeit right into the round of 8. I don't think any lessons will be learned there on either side. But yeah, the international soccer scene, which obviously no one is a huge fan of U.S. soccer. I mean, you're a fan of the country you're from. But I don't think U.S. soccer and certainly U.S. soccer fans, football fans, are probably looked at well by the international soccer community. I could be wrong there. I think it's primarily people like me that they don't like. I think there is probably some respect with the diehard soccer fans in the United States and the rest of the international soccer community. I think it's people like me who talk about it for 7 minutes on a podcast with zero knowledge of it. And support whatever happened there to bring Balogun back. I just learned his name not even 7 days ago. I am probably the people that the rest of the international community really don't like when it comes to American soccer fans. And that's fine. Again, a role I've played to some critical acclaim, and I will continue to do so. But it has been funny to watch the fans of every other country just melting down because they feel like U.S. soccer is being given some privilege here and getting Balogun back tonight. But it'll be the U.S. and Belgium tonight. Thank the Lord above for a 7 o'clock kickoff, especially in Seattle. I figured on the West Coast they would have this. But, I mean, they want the East Coast eyes. They want the New York eyes. They weren't going to play this at 9 p.m., especially this late. Group play, maybe. Friendlies, certainly you play them whatever hour of the night. But they don't want this, a round of 16 game with the quarterfinals on the round, and most of these games are getting played in the U.S. There's no way that they don't want all of the biggest markets to have an eye on this. So a 7 o'clock kickoff tonight between Belgium and the U.S. Now, I did hear, and I didn't watch it, but I did hear that last night's England-Mexico matchup was really, really good, and England won that one 3-2, so they're on to the round of 8. But from everybody that I know that actually cares about soccer, like Greg...
Evan, we're down 2 points. Calm down, Greg. It's soccer. It's soccer.
Everybody that I've talked to seems to think that a lot of the matchups... This has been a wildly entertaining World Cup, and all the matchups have been very good, high level, the beautiful game. We'll see if that can continue tonight for USA. What a remix there of the Hacksaw Jim Duggan intro. Hacksaw Jim Duggan is one of those funny wrestlers to me when I think back to my childhood watching the Hulk Hogan era, the Macho Man era, the Ultimate Warrior era. It just kind of feels like they ran out of ideas for Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and they just looked into the prop closet and said, all right, we're going to give you some blue trunks, a 2x4, and an American flag, and then just scream USA like a lunatic and see what happens. People like it when people scream USA. I don't know, what was he, the everyman? Was he a blue-collar guy? Is that what he was? Hacksaw Jim Duggan. It just seemed like they opened the closet and said, here's a 2x4 and a flag, scream USA like a crazy person, and see if that wins him over. And it did, and it worked. So Team USA tonight, a 7 o'clock start time with Belgium, and then I don't know who they play. I haven't seen like a bracket. I don't know who they would play then. Has it already been set who they would play? Let me just look at the scoreboard here. We've got Portugal and Spain. That'll be a good one this afternoon. I don't know, 2 o'clock. You got Argentina and Egypt tomorrow. Switzerland and Colombia. These are all round of 16 games then, right? And then we're waiting all the way till the weekend, I would think. Yeah, probably Saturday. Norway plays England. That Norway soccer player that looks like a modern-day Viking. He's been trending on Twitter, too. Another thing that I have enjoyed about the World Cup that is totally outside of soccer, I don't know if you've seen these videos of fans from other countries that are coming to America for the first time. Coming to America. Beef jerky time. And they're here for the first time, and they are experiencing American culture and especially American food for the first time. Now, we lead the league in what? We lead the league in GLP-1 subscriptions at this point, I think. We lead the league in obesity, I'm sure. And a part of it is we eat these big, hearty meals that are rich in calories and sugars and salt, but they're delicious. And, yeah, it's probably not great for our country overall, but that is sort of a calling card. But all of these international soccer fans that are experiencing American food for the first time, like there was this English soccer fan that was maybe in Texas. I think we talked about this, right? The Japanese fan that was in Texas and had his eyes roll in the back of his head because of the barbecue he had. There was that English guy who tried biscuits and gravy for the first time, and it was like just a moment where he had to sit back and savor it for an extra few seconds. I have enjoyed that element of the World Cup outside of just the action on the pitch. I have very much enjoyed watching all these international soccer fans in the U.S. for the first time enjoying American excess. And nobody does it better, baby. Nobody does it better than us. All right, so that's tonight, 7 o'clock. Now let's talk about the Brewers, shall we, over the weekend in Arizona. And this was a series. You get a series win here where you're starting pitching over the weekend, and we'll talk about Woodruff. But the starting pitching overall was not good. You're playing a decent team, a 500 team. You're at their place. The Brewers are in the middle of this run of a ton of games with no days off. They start a 5-game set tonight in St. Louis, a doubleheader tomorrow. And you don't have a day off until the All-Star break, as we've talked about. It's a stretch of like 19 games in 17 days or 18 games in 17 days. So when you factor in, you're on the road against a decent team. Your bullpen is already worn out going into the series, and they've got this huge run that's not going to end for a week and a half, so they still have to get it to the All-Star break finish line here for the first half. And you got nothing really out of your starting pitchers Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, or not much. And Brandon Sproat, I guess, was the best of it on Sunday, but he only lasted 4 innings. The bullpen was so good over the weekend that for this team to be able to steal a series win in those conditions with how beat up and run down the bullpen is, offensively, they didn't execute. Runners in scoring position is a big problem at the moment and just has been now for 2 or 3 weeks, and you just hope they find their way out of it. But that continued over the weekend. So when you factor in the run of games they're in, how worn out the bullpen is already, starting pitching did them no favors. The Woodruff injury didn't really execute offensively. To come out of that by winning 2 out of 3, rallying for the win late on Sunday. I mean, you take any win in this stretch you can get, but to win a series on the road, given those conditions, I thought was pretty impressive over the weekend. So let's start on Friday. You had Kyle Harrison, not good, 2 2/3, just ran into a wall in the 3rd inning. Couldn't get out of it, couldn't locate in that inning, and he copped to that in the postgame and said, look, I've got to be better, I've got to get deeper into games. That was inexcusable. But he only gives you 2 2/3. So you're coming into Friday's matchup, like we just said, you're in this run of games, and you're thinking, all right, our guy who's a borderline all-star, even though he didn't get the all-star bid, 8-1 record, a 2.7 ERA. We could really use a win, but we could also really use a starting pitcher on Friday to go 6 innings of 1-run ball, 7 innings of 2-run ball. And he goes out there and goes 2 2/3 and had to get lifted. And the reason he had to get lifted, he only gave up 3 runs. Brewers jumped out to a 3-0 lead on Friday. And that catch by Lourdes Gurriel in left field on Friday changed the whole game. The Brewers were up 3-0. And Garrett Mitchell had hit a 2-run home run, Jake Bauer's RBI single, and Garrett Mitchell had, it was in the first row, he had a 3-run home run robbed that would have put them up 6-0. Lourdes Gurriel makes one of the catches of the year in left field, like go-go gadget arm, is able to reach into the first row of the bleachers and snatch it back. That changed the whole game, because that in the third inning, that would have been a 6-0 game, and it's pretty much over at that point. So he snatches that back. Then the next half inning, the Diamondbacks scored those 3 runs against Harrison and tied the game. So you went from, in a blink, 6-0 lead, we're cruising to a Friday win, and Harrison can probably go 5, 6, 7 deep. All of a sudden, you're in a 3-3 game, and Harrison's pitch count is ramping up. And he just got to a point in that third inning where he had almost thrown 35, 36 pitches, and that's a danger zone. He only threw 72 pitches total, but you never want to approach 40 pitches in an inning. Like, that's getting, especially with a young arm, which Harrison is, that's getting into a real critical mass situation. So they pull him, and yeah, he only goes 2 2/3. Now, Chad Patrick comes in on Friday and gives you some big work out of the bullpen. He had that bad stretch, but he's been good now in the last week. 3 1/3 he gave you on a night where, again, your starter only went 2 2/3. You needed somebody to eat some innings up, and he did that. 3 1/3, didn't give up a run, had 2 strikeouts. Eventually, this game goes to extra innings, and now you've got to tip your cap to Grant Anderson. The Brewers, in a 3-3 game, cannot score on the top of the 10th. And if you don't score on the top of the 10th in the Ghost Runner era, you're losing that game probably, I was going to say 9 times out. It's probably like 8 times out of 10, because then all Arizona has to do is get the runner to third base, bunt him over, sack fly, boom, and they walk home with a 4-3 win. Once the Brewers did not score in the top of the 10th inning, I thought, they're probably going to lose. And honestly, I kind of felt like, as much as I want to see them win, they kind of had it coming with their inability to score runs at several junctures in that game. They had runners in scoring position, couldn't cash in, and when they couldn't score on the top of the 10th, I kind of felt like, all right, this feels inevitable now. You're going to lose a game where you almost had a 6-0 lead, then you blew it in a 3-3 game. You had your chances, and now you're not going to win. But in the bottom of the 10th inning, Grant Anderson, now Pat Murphy in that game came out to the mound at the beginning of the inning. Post-back surgery, what is he, a week and a half post-back surgery since he had his vertebrae smashed? And he went out there, and it was just, I love when a manager just goes out to the mound. It's not a pitching change. It's getting everybody to lock in, because it's so rare, especially post-surgery, for Murphy to be the guy out there anyway. Chris Hook is the guy making all the pitching changes right now. He's the guy that 9 times out of 10 is coming to the mound to have a conversation, to rally the defense, whatever. So when I saw Murphy walking out there, and they hadn't even thrown a pitch in the inning, so you knew this wasn't a pitching change. Grant Anderson had just gotten onto the mound. I thought, this is gonna get him going. I thought that was just a really smart move by Murphy, especially when you do have the letdown in the top half of that inning. You can't score the ghost runner, and you're in a precarious position. I felt like that gave them a little boost in the bottom of the 10th inning, that Pat Murphy walked out there and got him locked in, gave them the strategy. First batter hits into a double play, then you've got the runner at third base, 2 down, and Grant Anderson got out of it. He put a 0 up in the bottom of the 10th. Then the Brewers are able to get it going in the top of the 11th. Jackson Churio, that infield single where the relief pitcher for Arizona just tried to wildly throw it to home plate, was way wide, 2-run score. Bryce Terang then a 2 RBI single, 4 runs on the board. He take a 7-3 lead. And then Anderson came back out in the 11th, gave up 1 run, but that was it. But you can't say enough about the bullpen in general on Friday and over the weekend. But Chad Patrick on Friday giving you 3 1/3. And Ashby gave you a clean inning. Uribe gave you a clean inning. McGill gave you a clean inning. But Grant Anderson then in the 10th inning in a tie game to not allow that ghost runner to score and to get it to the 11th. And then he's able to bring it home with another inning pitched in the 11th inning. You got to tip your cap to Grant Anderson and the way he was able to put in some work on Friday. So you get a 7-4 win. That game didn't end, I think, until 12:15 on 4th of July morning, basically, on Saturday morning. And that was, about a 3.5 or 3 hour and 45-minute game. And I remember after they wrapped it up and they got the final out, I thought, man, didn't feel like they deserved to win that one. But they did. But they did win it. And that sets you up for Saturday then. You end up losing this one. This was the Brandon Woodruff game. We're going to talk more about Woodruff. I guess we can talk about it within the context of the game. So he goes out there in the first, was it the first inning he gave up the 3-run bomb? Yeah. So the Brewers had a chance to grab an early lead, top of the first, couldn't do it. Bottom of the first inning, 2 up, 2 down for Woody, no problem. Then the next 2 guys reach. Then he threw a middle cutter that was hit for a 3-run home run, no doubt shot. But then he gets the next guy out, 1, 2, 3, second inning, and then we get to the 4th inning, right? 1, 2, 3, third inning. We get to the 4th inning, and he had 2 outs, and you noticed it in the 3rd inning. And then you really noticed it in the fourth inning if you're somebody that watches the velocity. And I think we all are, right, as Brewer fans when Woody's on the mound based on what happened a month and a half ago. Well, you always kind of have your eye on that. And when Miz is pitching, we're watching it very closely, too, for different reasons. But you saw a little bit in the third inning. Ooh, fastball at 89. Don't love that. But, all right, it's one of those things now. I think with Woodruff at this point in his career, sometimes he's going to have that. And the next one's 88, and the next one's 87. Then he comes out in the fourth inning, and it's 87 again on a fastball. And then he's throwing a bunch of changeups, which he throws, but then he just started to exclusively throw changeups, which is a pretty good sign at that point that he doesn't have it or something bad is happening. Contreras was looking into the dugout the entire time, waiting for somebody to come out, kind of half signaling them that maybe somebody should check on this guy. And they do come out eventually. He had 2 outs and nobody on in the inning, and you could just see it was not good. He tried to talk his way into staying in the game, but it turns out that it's the exact same thing he had, and it's against the exact same team. It was against Arizona at home at American Family Field, whatever that was, a month and a half ago, day game, a Wednesday game. Exact same opponent, and at about the exact same time. I think he got pulled in the second inning maybe, or the third inning of that game. It's the fourth inning this time around. And I do think he campaigned to maybe see if he could stay in and see if he could find it. But since it's the exact same thing and it's the exact same feeling, Chris Hook said, no, we're going to walk off. And you could see in Woody's eyes, a baseball player, there's no crying in baseball. A baseball player is never going to try not to show you that kind of emotion. But anybody that's familiar with hiding tears or trying to avoid looking like you're crying, just those quick brushes of the side eye with your index finger. I mean, Woodruff was emotional on Saturday because he knows the feeling and he knows that the same thing that happened to him a month and a half ago is happening again. And with Woodruff at this point in his career, look, I hope we see him again. I think we will. But based on the way this has gone now for several years, I think, and he probably has to think, that when things like that happen, is this the last time I'm going to pitch? Is this the last time I'm going to be in a big league mound? And it is. And the postgame, they say it's exactly the same thing. It's a labrum issue, I guess. Pat Murphy made it sound like they're not shocked that it came back again, that maybe he has, what did they say he had? Not a wart, not a scar, but he has something in that area of his shoulder that is kind of holding him back or that's going to continue to be a problem. And the solution is another shoulder surgery, and I don't think Woody wants to do that. I think Woody is hoping, like we all are, that with rehab and downtime, he can come back and maybe this problem will go away. I am certain he wants to avoid another shoulder surgery. If he has another shoulder surgery, unless we're getting the, what was the rookie of the year, the funky butt-loving surgery? Unless we're getting the funky butt, I got to see if I can find that quick. Unless we're getting the rookie of the year, those tendons have healed a little tight. Was Rookie of the Year a shoulder? He was an elbow guy, right? That movie, Rookie of the Year. What a great movie. Gardenhoser. Henry Rowan Gardner. Here, I think I've got it here. Hold on.
How long will they have to be in the cast?
August. And now rotate from the shoulder slowly.
Oh, whoa! Funky butt loving. Did he say funky butt loving?
I had a fantasy baseball team for like a decade that was named Funky Butt Lovin'.
Slowly.
Oh, whoa! Funky butt loving. Did he say funky butt loving?
Who wrote that script? Where did that come from? I want to know who in the writers' room came up with that. When I was, and I mentioned this, I think, on the B Morning Show, when I was of that age in the mid-90s, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, you'd have sleepovers with your buddies, you play Mario Kart, and hammer Totino's pizza rolls, and Mountain Dew, and cheddar Pringles, and sour cream and onion, just much soda as the eye could see. And when we would rent movies, you would go to, well, I mean, back in that era, Blockbuster Family Video, but then I also am of an era where you could just go to the grocery store. Like the Piggly Wiggly had a section where you could rent videos or rent Super Nintendo or whatever. I would say, though, the holy trinity of movies in that era, for a dude's sleepover in 1993 or 94, you either went with The Mighty Ducks, Space Jam, or Rookie of the Year. That was like the holy trinity for my group of friends when I was 8 or 9 years old. I cannot tell you, when we were that age, 9 years old, watching that movie, and we heard this for the first time, I mean, I was in tears.
Butt loving. Did he say funky butt loving?
Crying. I was crying. We rewind it. Such a funny scene. So unless the shoulder surgery that would be next up for Woody to clean up whatever this labrum issue is, unless it's the funky butt loving, those tendons have fused a little tight and he gets back his 99-mile-per-hour fastball, I am sure at this juncture in his career, he would like to avoid another surgery, although it almost feels inevitable. I hope this isn't it. It just sucks. It sucks all the way around for Brewers fans, for Woody. He's a career Brewer. So many memorable moments and big games pitched and the home run off of Kershaw. We'll always remember that. He's got a bobblehead day commemorating that moment. I did have to laugh. It was a week ago, or maybe it was last week. They had Woody on the TV broadcast talking about how ironic it is that his first bobblehead, this is his first bobblehead as a Brewer player, and he's been pitching now for almost a decade, 9 years. It is ironic that for a pitcher, his first bobblehead is going to commemorate a hit he had, the home run he had off of Kershaw in the NLCS in 2018. And he was in such good spirits on that broadcast. Now, when this happened initially back in April against Arizona, remember at the end of that game, we all thought, or Murphy thought, all right, we're going to put him on the IL 10 days, 15 days. But a couple of days into that, they had an update where it sounded like he was going to be back pretty much right away. And then that lasted a month and a half. And then he came back. But he came back and he was pitching so well in 2 starts. He had 11 2/3 innings pitched in those 2 starts with no runs. He's on the TV broadcast talking about his bobblehead. And it kind of felt like we were on a good trajectory there. And he gives up that home run, whatever, you're going to give up runs. And then you just saw that velo tick down and tick down and tick down and thought, oh, God, this is probably not good. And then you see Contreras. As soon as I saw Contreras start to peek into the dugout, that was a sign that he thinks something's wrong and maybe somebody should come check on him. And then when Hook comes out, you kind of knew it was going to be done at that point. So is this a situation, like Murphy said, they kind of anticipated this could happen? Is he going to be out again for a month and a half? Is this a situation where if you're the Brewers, you're just hoping, maybe rest him all the way until the end of August, and he may need that anyway? But even if he is getting to a point where he's getting healthier at the end of July or early August, do you try to time this thing out where you start him in the first week of September and you give him a couple of starts in September and see if he could go in the playoffs? Are you willing to throw him out? Even if with Woodruff at this point, let's just say he comes back at the end of August, and he makes 4 starts, and there's no problem. He's throwing 92, 93 again, the reduced velocity that we've seen, and he makes 3 or 4 starts, and they all look good. Even if that's the case, and no other moves are made, and they may make a move, Tarek Skubal, they're going to probably make a move for a pitcher, whether that's a relief pitcher or a starting pitcher or both, who knows. But let's just assume for this argument that everything is going to stay the same with the rotation, the pitchers they have available. Even if you got Woody back in early September, and you had him throw 3 games, and it looked really good, I don't think there's any way you could pencil him in to an NLDS game 1 or 2 start, right? Like Miz and Harrison are your 1-2, but in a perfect world, Miz is your game 1 starter, Harrison's your game 2 starter, and even though you've seen flashes from other guys, I would think, right, you'd like to have Woodruff out there as your number 3 guy in the NLDS or the NLCS, but even if he were to come back in August and have 3, 4, maybe even 5 starts where he goes 5 or 6 innings and he looks okay, I don't know how you could feel comfortable penciling him in for a game 3 playoff start where you just never know. Is the second or third inning, is that going to be the inning his velo drops and then you're putting a bullpen arm in a do-or-die playoff game? You know what I mean? I think at this point, unfortunately, and again, this just sucks. It sucks for Brewers fans. It sucks for Woody. We all want to see him do well. We all want to see him get back to a point where he could make 20, 25 starts a year and really give it the way he used to. And he's never going to have that velo back again. But even if he's in that 92, 93, 94 range, he has proven at this point between 13 starts last year and 9 starts this year that even at the reduced velocity of low to mid 90s, he can still make it work. He's still a really good pitcher. He has to be a bit more of a finesse pitcher, but he's still able to get the job done. We all want that for him, but I don't know how in the world, even if he gave you 4 or 5 good starts at the end of the year, okay, he's going to pitch game 3, and then all of a sudden in game 3, he throws an 85-mile-an-hour fastball, it's hit for a 2-run home run, then you got to warm somebody up, you got to pull him out of the game. I don't see how that's feasible. I hope I'm wrong, and I hope maybe it is a quick surgery, or he can come back in September with surgery or whatever, and then they're feeling more comfortable with it. I hope for the best path to get him back out there and be helpful for this team, but I just don't know how you can feel comfortable with what we've seen this year. If you throw him out there in a critical game late in the year or a critical playoff game, you just never know. If his velocity going to just disappear in the middle of the second inning, the middle of the third inning, we don't know. So that was a real bummer, and the emotion that you saw on Woodruff's face made it even more of a bummer, and he did what a good veteran pitcher does, a team leader. he stood outside of his locker in the postgame and answered as many questions as he could, and certainly people want to know timelines, and is this the same as that, or could you have surgery? And he said, look, I don't know, this happened an hour ago, but he did stand there for 5 minutes and tried to answer as many questions as he could. Just a real bummer coming out of Saturday. And Saturday is another one of those games where you had guys on base all game long and couldn't cash in. Yelly did hit a home run, his only hit of the series. He has been real bad, and he's taking some heat on social media right now. What is he hitting coming out of Sunday? You kind of hope that home run would get him going. He almost hit it into the swimming pool. I can't swim, Clark. I know that, Eddie. He hit one into the swimming pool or near it, a 2-run shot in the 5th inning. At that time, the Brewers were down 3-0, and that made it a 3-2 game. And you're just kind of hoping, all right, maybe that'll wake him up a little bit. But then he didn't get a hit his last at-bat there. No hits, 0 for 4 on Sunday. Or did he not play Sunday? No, I think he played on Sunday. He's hitting .243. Yelly's in a real 3-week, I guess I'd say, 2 or 3 week rut right now. He's hitting .243 with a 710 OPS. You hope at some point he can kind of find what he had last year and the year before that, before he got hurt, where he was hitting .315 with some power. And last year he hit .270 and 29 bombs and 100-plus runs driven in. You can live with that. I mean, you can more than live with that if he's hitting almost 30 home runs and 100 driven in. But what we're seeing right now from Yelly, remember, he was so good in 18, MVP year. 19 should have been an MVP year. The 2019 season for Yelly, where he hit .329 and won a second batting title, 44 home runs, and he didn't play the entire month of September. And he finished the year with an 1,100 OPS. So then he had that kneecap fracture, pandemic year, whatever, you kind of throw that out like you do with everybody. But then in 22 and 23, he kind of hit .245, .250, didn't hit with a lot of power. And then the last couple of years, he seems to have gotten out of that. He's hitting with some power again, hitting for average again. But what we're seeing right now is more that 2022-23 Yelly, where the bat speed doesn't really look like it's there. He's biting on that low and outside pitch a lot of non-competitive swings and non-competitive at-bats. Hopefully he can work his way out of it, but he is in a bad 2 or 3 week stretch right now. He did have that home run on Saturday, and then you got down 4-2. Chourio cranked a home run the 9th inning, and you lose ultimately Saturday 4-3, but had so many chances on Saturday to cash in with runners in scoring position, just couldn't do it. You got to tip your cap like we talked about with Chad Patrick and Grant Anderson on Friday. Craig Yoho, who we talked about in the comments Pat Murphy had about Craig Yoho coming out of that game at Cincinnati a few weeks ago where he gave up a bunch of runs, and Pat Murphy had that, I don't even think you can call it a compliment sandwich. What is it when you just say a bunch of bad stuff and then there's one piece of bread at the bottom that's a compliment? Remember, he had all those things that he said about how the fastball he's not locating and the changeup is hittable and he's going to have to figure something out, but a hell of a guy, though. Got to say something nice, Pat. Well, Craig Yoho came out after Woodruff in emergency duty and gave you 2 2/3 and did not give up a run. So that's the best he's looked at the major league level. And maybe what Pat Murphy had to say about him coming out of that Cincinnati game, maybe that sparked something in Craig Yoho. That is as good as he has looked. He had a cup of coffee last year. He's had a couple of cups of coffee this year. I think on the TV broadcast on Saturday, it was either Dillard or Vinny Rottino. It must be Dillard. I think Dillard said, look, this guy's got nothing more to prove at AAA Nashville. He puts up sub-2 ERAs at AAA Nashville, and so far at the major league level, it doesn't look like it's there yet, but sending him back down, there is nothing more, no more boxes to check for Craig Yoho at the AAA level. He's just got to figure it out at the major league level, and maybe that was sort of helpful for Yoho, where he had to come into a game, he wasn't prepared for it, it was emergency duty, and he pitched really well. That's another guy, when you look back at the weekend and you tip your cap to all these bullpen guys, Craig Yoho eating 2 2/3 in emergency duty on Saturday was a big deal. Koenig did give up that run after we spoke glowingly about him on the Thursday podcast. He gave up that insurance run, which turns out to be a pretty big run in the bottom of the 8th inning after Chourio hit that home run in the 9th inning and lose by a run. But the Brewer offense had a litany of chances on Saturday to get in front and couldn't do it. So you get to the rubber match on Sunday. Brandon Sproat on the hill. We know we've talked about often how he's been very up and down, like a certain somebody from 2019. And he hung in there, but again, a short start on Sunday. He only lasts 4 innings. Pitch count was getting toward 100 already. 4 innings of 1-run ball. Walked a bunch of guys. As Murphy talked about in the postgame, you just can't have that. You can't be walking 3 guys in 4 innings. They had 4 strikeouts. Once again, though, Grant Anderson followed up Brandon Sproat. An inning and 2/3. Didn't give up a run. Drew Rom, who I guess Murphy is calling Rom-Com. He came in and got a strikeout to end the 6th inning. Ashby did give up a run, but Uribe gave you an inning and 2/3 scoreless. McGill gave you an inning scoreless. And then finally, Jake Bowers broke through in a 1-0 game, taking on an all-star Eduardo Rodriguez for the Diamondbacks. Bowers hit a 2-run shot in a lefty-lefty matchup. Rake. His 16th of the year, that put the Brewers in front. And then Joey O, a huge insurance run. Opposite field RBI single scoring Gary Sanchez. Ortiz now, he's hitting 250, I think, in the end of the month of June into July. That's not awful. The Diamondbacks got one back in the 7th inning. Then the bottom of the 8th inning was that line drive to Terang, which started a double play. And then Sal Frelick, what a catch at the end of that game on Sunday, where it's a runner on, 2 down, 1-run game in the 9th inning, and it's in foul territory. He goes into foul territory, jumps into the netting, kind of gets cross-checked into the boards over there too, and he hung on for the final out of the game. Murphy always jokes with Sal Frelick that he does a lot of unnecessary jumping, unnecessary leaping. And in the postgame, they were talking to Murphy about it, and Murph said, yeah, just trying to make SportsCenter again. Sal's just trying to make SportsCenter again. The fun father-son-ish feud between Murphy and Frelick has always been funny the past couple of years, this year especially. But that's the final out of the game, and you get a 3-2 win. So, again, you're in this run of a million games with no days off. Starting pitching's banged up, and you get 3 bad starts. Harrison 2 2/3, Woody injury 3 2/3, and Sproat 4 innings. That's all you got, and you're on the road against a decent team, and you take 2 out of 3, despite not hitting with runners on. You've got to feel really good about getting that series win, which they did with that 3-2 win on Sunday. So they come out of the weekend 55-33 on the year. Did you watch all the games, by the way? I saw a lot of conversation on Brewer Twitter about how annoying this last week has been, where the Brewers were on ESPN, was it last Wednesday? Then they were on Brewer TV. Then Friday they were on Apple TV. Then on Saturday they were back on Brewer TV. Then Sunday they were on Peacock. I didn't even know Peacock had baseball rights. I know I have to subscribe to the Cock to get Badger basketball games and Badger football games from time to time. That's how I signed up for Peacock. I did not know that we'd have to use that for Brewer baseball. But if you are somebody that paid the $150 at the beginning of the year for Brewer TV, and you felt like you were going to get a lot of games, this has been a really agitating week-long stretch where one game's on ESPN, one's on Apple, one's on Brewer TV, one's on Peacock. It's just the way it is. It's annoying, and it feels like the organizations, Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, all of them, it feels like they're trying to make things difficult on the fans for some reason. Like, you've got to sign up for free trials or subscribe to all these things if you want to watch all the games, if you want to watch your team play games. But I also get it from the media perspective. There's a billion rights there and a ton of money to be made there, but they are making it difficult on the fans to watch these games. Yeah, the Brewers were on 4 different subscription formats in the last week. It is agitating, I think, for Brewer fans out there to have to, okay, this game's on Peacock, especially when maybe it's not on your radar the way it is for us, where we're so locked in. I'm looking at the schedule every day. If you're just on 4th of July weekend and on Sunday at 3 o'clock, you flip on Brewer TV thinking you're going to see the Brewer Diamondback game, and it's not there. You're thinking, what the hell? And then you look it up, and I got to subscribe to Peacock now? I've got to download a different app. I've got to sign up for a free trial. I've got to find a friend that maybe has a subscription that I can siphon for one game. That is agitating. If you're not locked into the day-to-day where all these are, and you're just assuming they're going to be on Brewer TV, which why wouldn't you do that? That has to be very annoying when you flip a game on and you get to Brewer TV and it's just the dead replay playing over and over. The next broadcast will be tomorrow. The next broadcast will be on Tuesday. Well, where the heck is the game on? Oh, Peacock. Oh, Apple. But they get the series win. They get to 55-33. So the Cubs, after having a hot week, they lost. They got blown out at home on Friday, 17-1 at the hands of the Cardinals. Then they lost Saturday in the fog game. You see that? All the fog at Wrigley on Saturday, where you had Cardinal infielders in whatever inning that was, the 8th inning, telling umpires, look, I don't think it's safe for us to be out here. We can't see the ball. If a line drive comes at me at 105 miles per hour, I can barely see the ball from where I am right now. So that was a weird game. Cardinals won that, and then the Cubs salvage on Sunday and avoid the sweep. So that was good, too. Cubs lose a series, Brewers win a series. You're back to a 6-game lead in the NL Central, and you're 7 better in the loss column than the Cubs coming out of the weekend. And the Brewers right now are 2.5 games behind the Dodgers for the number 1 spot in the NL, only 1 worse in the loss column. Now the Brewers have a 3-game lead on the Braves for that number 2 spot. As we've been over, we are at game 88 now coming out of Sunday, so we're better than halfway through it. Still pretty early to be looking at that, but you want to be in that 1-2 spot. You want to avoid playing in the best-of-3 wildcard round like they were able to avoid last year. You would like to just get right on to the NLDS once we get to playoff time. So right now things are looking pretty good. Again, 2.5 behind the Dodgers for the 1 spot, 3 up on the Braves for the 2 spot, and a 6-game lead on the Cubs. Cubs right now have the 4th best record in the NL. but 6 better than the Cubs and 7 better in the loss column than Chicago in the NL Central. Now, let's talk about All-Stars real quick. That was announced over the weekend as well. You got 2. Jacob Mizorowski, I don't think he is going to be playing in the All-Star game because it sounds like now they're going to have him pitch the day before the All-Star break, which for the Brewers, hey, look, you're in a division title chase, you're in a playoff chase, you're trying to solidify a 1 or a 2 spot, and you want to squeeze as many Mizorowski starts as you can out of the first half. Would it be great for Miz to be out there as the starter for the NL, as the prohibitive Cy Young favorite right now to be the starter for the All-Star game? It would be the first starter for the All-Star game, I think, since Ben Sheets did it in 2008, and he might be the only one that's ever done it in a Brewer jersey. I have to go back and look. But Sheets did that. That's why 2008 is one of those years, man, where you got CeCe and you thought you had the best 1-2 punch at the top of your rotation, then Sheets gets hurt, and then CeCe has to pitch his ass off down the stretch just to get them in the playoffs, and then he was out of gas a little bit come playoff time. But that's how good Sheets was that summer before they picked up CeCe, or right when they did pick up CeCe. He started the All-Star game. So would that be great for the Miz? Is that a lot of fun to watch the All-Star game and one of your guys is starting the All-Star game? Yes, but from a Brewer fan perspective or an organization perspective, you'd much rather have him make all the extra starts that he can before the All-Star break and try to get as many wins as you can out of him before the All-Star break. But right now, it looks like that he is not going to be pitching in the All-Star game. Now, he did last year. Remember all the controversy over whether or not he should have been in the All-Star game after, 6 appearances last year? He did pitch in it last year and had a scoreless inning, but the way things line up now, I do not think he will be pitching in the All-Star game, but he is now a 2-time All-Star, and then William Contreras got in. He is now a 3-time All-Star, 2 times with the Brewers, once with the Braves. On the list of snubs, Bryce Terang has to be up there, right? He's top 10 WAR. He's hitting 270. He's hitting for some power. He's stealing bags. He's playing Gold Glove defense. Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where he didn't get voted in. I don't know what the difference is between the last few years and what it used to be, where when I think back to that 2006, 2007, 2008, 09, 2010, 2011, now I know none of this is paper ballot anymore, but my wife and I were talking about this. It used to be around All-Star voting season, if you went to a Brewer game, they would just hand you like 1 million ballots. And then you could, as the game was going on, you had to, I think, punch a little hole, a hanging Chad. Remember that? You had to punch a little hole in all the Brewers, but then you'd just turn them in. They'd have these spots where you could turn them in at the end of the game, and you could fill out, as many as you wanted during the course of a 3.5-hour game back then, pre-pitch clock. Now, I don't think that happens anymore. I don't think there are paper ballots anymore. Maybe that has impacted the Brewer fan base not being able to vote their guys in. It just felt like 20 years ago, if there was a Brewer player on the ballot, we were voting them in, and now it feels like we're not able to do that for whatever reason. I don't know if there just isn't enough dedication to it or they're not promoting enough. I don't know. I did some voting, but again, I do remember 20 years ago, I would sit in the studio here and I would vote for Jonathan Lucroy or I'd vote for Ryan Braun. Remember, they always had that last 3 or 4 guys you could vote on for that last roster spot in each league. We'd always vote on that. But it felt like we were much better as a fan base at voting guys in 15, 20 years ago, and maybe we're not anymore. But even without that, Bryce Terang, even without the fan vote, where I think he finished 3rd, he should have been an All-Star. This should have been Bryce Terang's first All-Star year. He's top, like I said, I think he's number 7 in the league in wins above replacement at 3.5. He's got the offensive numbers. He's playing Gold Glove caliber defense again. No reason he shouldn't get in. Kyle Harrison felt like a snub to me as well, even with the bad start on Friday. He's 8-1 with a 2.87 ERA. Felt like he should have had a puncher's chance to get in. And I know we talked about Ashby. He gave up a run over the weekend, so the ERA is sitting at 3.2. He leads the league in wins. I think if Ashby's ERA was more in the mid to low 2s and he had the 12-1 record, then I feel like he's probably getting in. Is he still the league leader in wins by 2 games? He is. I think we talked about that on Thursday. I just thought if you're leading the major leagues in wins, even if you're a middle relief pitcher, you should get some consideration. Again, I think if his ERA was 2.2 instead of 3.2, and he has the 12-1 record, he probably gets in. But to me, the number one guy for the Brewers, if you want to talk about all-star snubs, Bryce Terang should be in that game. You could make a case for my boy Rick Bowers. He's put up the numbers, 16 home runs, leads the team in home runs and RBIs. The batting average is sitting at 270. So I think you could put him on the list as well. But number one and 2 to me are Bryce Terang and Kyle Harrison when it comes to all-star snubs. But you get Miz and Contreras into the all-star game. And just based on the way things line up, I don't think Miz will be pitching at all in that game. He'll be there, but I don't think he'll be pitching in that game. Now, we get set for the Cardinals series, which gets underway tonight. Oh, I see we've got a new article on ESPN about trade targets with Josh Hader up there. Wouldn't that be something? Now, if you look at this Brewer team right now, there's always going to be, and we talked about it on the email episode, there is going to be a lot of conversation about Tarek Skubal. He is very much the CC Sabathia kind of guy. He's a 2-time reigning Cy Young Award winner. He's in a contract year. He's probably not signing a contract to stay in Detroit. He's going to cost you a lot. He's going to be a rental. He's going to cost you probably 2 or 3 high-level prospects, and you're only going to have him for the remainder of this year, and then he's not likely to sign, if you're the Brewers certainly, he's not likely to sign a long-term contract there. So that's a name that's out there. Like I've said many times on this podcast, I would prioritize, especially with the issues this team has right now with hitting with runners in scoring position. Not that that's going to last like that, but I think you have seen some offensive deficiencies now over the better part of the last month. I would prefer, if you're going to spend a prospect load to get one thing, and you could get both, why not both? But if I were to spend a bunch of prospects getting one impact thing, I would want an impact bat at third base. Now, I did look at this last week. There are not a lot of big-name third basemen that are going to be available at the trade deadline that have some pop in their bat. Now, Nolan Arenado, I know he's on the back half of his career. He just signed in Arizona. He's hitting .250, I think, with 9 or 10 home runs. He is no longer the guy that's going to hit you .320 with 35 home runs and 100 runs driven in, but he plays Gold Glove caliber defense at third, and who knows? Maybe he comes to Milwaukee. We know he loves hitting at American Family Field. I mean, his numbers at Miller Park / American Family Field are outrageous, even with Arizona and even with St. Louis on the back half of his career in St. Louis, and we certainly in Colorado. Maybe he finds it a little bit in Milwaukee. Get on a team that's fighting for a division title. Get on a team that's fighting for maybe a World Series run. He could be a name. And then I think the other one I saw was Matt Chapman in San Francisco. He has had some good years. Not a great year this year. He's getting into his mid-30s as well. There aren't a ton of third basemen that are hitting 30 home runs and knocking in 100 runs and hitting 275. But that's what I would like them to get. But I know the Brewers are likely to target a relief pitcher or two as well. Wouldn't it be something if they got Hader? They got Hader back. Hader is in year 3, I think, of a 5-year deal he signed in Houston, and the Astros, I don't think, are going anywhere, even though the AL West, yuck. I don't think anybody's... they're only 2.5 games out. So the AL West is such a mess. The Mariners are 3 games over 500 in first place. The Rangers are 500 in second place, and the Astros are 2 games under, 2.5 back. So they're probably not going to be selling. You could win that division. You could win the AL West by winning 84 games, maybe. But I have seen that name, and wouldn't that be something... If on the short list of guys the Brewers could target at the trade deadline, if you think, okay, we need one more high-leverage bullpen arm, they go back and they bring Josh Hader home after that trade in 2022, which ultimately brings them William Contreras after a few more trades. But after that 2022 trade essentially sunk a team that was in first place, wouldn't that be something if he came back then at the trade deadline in 26? Yeah, that's all I want. I want a power-hitting third baseman, I want Tarek Skubal, and I want Josh Hader back in Milwaukee. Now, if they did that, if that's a world where that happens, I think already this team is a World Series contender. Clearly the Dodgers are the cream of the crop, back-to-back World Series champions, and they are, 2.5 games like we just said. They're 2.5 up on the Brewers. And even though that's not a huge gap, it does feel like it would take a lot to overtake them for the number 1 seed in the National League, and you're probably going to have to go through them if you want to get to a World Series. And I just don't know, even with how good the Brewers are, if you match up the Dodgers at full strength right now with the Brewers at full strength, I still feel like you're probably a notch or two below that team. But if you add Skubal and if you add Hader and a power-hitting third baseman, I kind of feel like you're right there toe-to-toe with them. That's all I'm asking for. You've got the number 1 farm system in baseball. You could get all of that. You have the money. You have the prospect cash, the collateral to get all of that. So far, in the last 7 or 8 years, the Brewers have been reluctant to spend that prospect capital to put themselves over the top. Maybe this year will be the year. But I do see, as I'm looking at the schedule now, another list of people that could be targeted by contenders at the trade deadline, and Josh Hader's face is right there. Now you head to St. Louis. You've got 5 against the Cardinals. You got the makeup game from whatever, when was that, back in the early May? Yeah, they had the rain out back in early May. That leads to the doubleheader tomorrow. So if you're the Cardinals... You're looking at this right now. The Brewers are 6 games up on Chicago, and they are 7.5 games up on St. Louis heading into this matchup. So the Cardinals look at this and say, hey, we're getting to the All-Star break. We're past the halfway point. If we want to make a real run here, if we want to contend in the division, This is a series where we've got to take 3 out of 5, or we've probably got to take 4 out of 5 and pick up 3 games and really get ourselves back into the conversation. So I would expect a very hungry, back up against the wall Cardinal team here as we are getting close to the All-Star break. You've got Shane Drowan on the hill tonight, 6:45 first pitch, then the Twin Bill tomorrow. Miz goes game 1. That is 1:15. And then they're TBD for game 2 at 6:45. Wednesday, 6:45, Kyle Harrison. Thursday, right now, TBD 6:45. I think Logan Henderson is coming back for that game. Logan Henderson, I think, fits into one of these TBDs. It'll be great to get him back, especially now because you're down Woodruff again. But this is a pretty big 5-game set in division with the team right now in third place. And as we said, the Cardinals have to view this as you don't play these division games as much as you used to. How many more series do they have? Let's see here. The Brewers have one more series with the Cardinals. It's the last series of the year, 3 games at American Family Field, the 25th, 26th, and 27th of September. So, yeah, if you're the Cardinals, you've got 5 at home against the division leader. It's put up or shut up time, I would think, for St. Louis. And if you're the Brewers, you have a chance to, if you can take 3 out of 5 here, if you take 3 out of 5 here, you may push St. Louis too far down to be able to come back, even with an entire second half of the schedule on tap. You only have one more series against them. You have a real opportunity to put some big separation here between yourself and St. Louis. Well, you take 4 out of 5, you're really putting them against the wall. So Shane Drowan on the hill tonight, a 6:45 first pitch. Now let's talk real quickly about the Summer League, and then I just want to touch on this Malik Beasley story. Summer League got underway Saturday and Sunday. We talked on the Thursday podcast. By the way, still no goodbye from Giannis. Giannis is officially a Miami Heat. Is that how you say it? He's officially a Heat. The trade becomes official today. Let me just check Giannis's Twitter. That kind of is starting to agitate me. I know we talked about it very briefly at the end of the Thursday podcast. Now, look, we know he has built his whole thing on loyalty and loving Milwaukee, and nothing yet. So the trade is official today. Up until today, Giannis was technically still a Milwaukee Buck. Now he is a Miami Heat, and all their players are Milwaukee players now, and this is when it becomes official. When I had that question posed to me that we talked about at the end of the podcast on Thursday, why haven't we seen thank you, Milwaukee? Giannis in his career, up until maybe the last year, and he tried to say the right things. His heart was not in it, clearly. We talked about some of the things he put on Twitter, and now they seem a little bit disingenuous, I guess, given what we now have learned about what was happening behind the scenes. But he has, for the most part, in his entire NBA career and his time in Milwaukee, always spoken glowingly of Milwaukee, his love for the city, his love for the fan base. And even though this isn't a title contending team anymore, it feels like he is always going to be a Milwaukee Buck. For the guy that said all that stuff and said all the right stuff, I am very surprised that we have not gotten thank you, Milwaukee. I went from a boy to becoming a man and became a champion and an MVP and couldn't have done it without the support of the Bucks fans and the organization. I'm very surprised. The only commentary we've gotten from Giannis is when people were starting to put things outside of his mural in downtown Milwaukee. I don't know what building that's on. The Euchre mural is done now, too. We've got murals everywhere. But the Giannis mural has been up for many years, and after he got traded, there were some people that were going down there and putting Giannis jerseys down there and candles down there, and I did kind of laugh. Giannis commented on Instagram and said, look, I'm not dead. I'm still an alive person. I'm still a real live boy. I didn't die. And that did make me laugh, but that's the only thing that we've heard from Giannis about the trade, since the trade, or acknowledging the trade. It is somewhat surprising that we have not gotten any kind of acknowledgement or thank you. Not that we need it, but we kind of do. Not that we need it, but for a guy whose brand is built on that, it is somewhat curious that we haven't gotten anything, maybe at some point today. But Summer League started over the weekend, so on Saturday, the Bucks played the Warriors. They won 97-83, and our boy Boob Jug Bogle Markovic had a good game. Now, we talked on Thursday about how they signed him. He was drafted in the second round last year, spent all of last year in the Adriatic League, was the MVP of the Adriatic League. Last week, right before Summer League started, the Bucks signed him to a standard 4-year, $9.5 million contract for a second-round pick. But we talked about when we went through the depth chart last Thursday how the Bucks just have a confluence now of a lot of good young talent with upside, and not all of these guys are going to level up every year and get better every year and become all-star caliber players. But what I really like about this team is, as I said last week, the coach Taylor Jenkins. And what I like is you've got a lot. You've got like 7 or 8 guys right now between Yakachunas and Bogolyub and Kalel Ware and guys like that, the rookies, Burries and Ahmed, we just don't know what they are. These are like not pull tabs, but something similar where, you figure a couple of these guys are going to hit and they're going to become very good NBA players. And I do feel like Bogolyub, he's only 20 years old. He's going to turn 21 next week. As we said on the Thursday podcast, and as you saw if you watched the game on Saturday, clearly from when they drafted him last year to this year and winning the MVP of the Adriatic League, he has put on a ton of weight, like 30 pounds of muscle. He's just a bigger, thicker dude. Now, I watched most of that game on Saturday. He is really good at that level. Look, you're not playing NBA caliber players in Summer League. You're playing NBA caliber hopefuls in Summer League, but you're not playing, the starting five for the New York Knicks in Summer League. But against the competition he was facing on Saturday, he looked really comfortable offensively. He knew exactly where he should be. He utilized his height. He utilized his strength. He was over 3 on threes, whatever. He's got to get that worked out. Maybe you've got to show some range, as we know. But he had a really good sense getting around the basket of where he should be and capitalizing on that. Now, defensively, he does look like, appropriately for the Bucks, a newborn baby deer. He did not look good defensively. And again, you're not playing high-level NBA talent. So if non-high-level NBA talent is making you look that bad defensively, he's got a long way to go defensively. But I did see Marcus Johnson, Bucks TV analyst, and one of the best players on those 80s teams, should be a Hall of Famer. During that game on Saturday, Marcus Johnson tweeted out that he watched for 5 minutes and he can already tell Bogolyub's going to be a good player in the NBA. So Bogolyub's, I think we have to stop calling him Boob Jug probably. As fun as that is, Jug Dish. Bogolyub's stock is kind of on the rise. 20 years old, 6'10". He's getting stronger. He's got to figure it out defensively, but I thought some impressive offensive minutes in that win on Saturday. Now, he did not play yesterday. They didn't play anybody of consequence yesterday. They lost the Nets 89-69. But coming out of the weekend, I thought a very interesting game from Bogolyub on Saturday where, remember, we talked about on Thursday, in Summer League last year, he looked awful on both ends, on offense and defense. On offense on Saturday, he looks like he's come a long way. He still has to come a long way defensively, but I think you like the signs of progress you saw from Saturday's Summer League game. Now, I want to talk real quick about this Malik Beasley story, and I just want to play you a quick clip of a montage that somebody on Twitter put together. So Malik Beasley played for the Bucks for 1 year or 2 years. Was it just 2024? Malik Beasley, ESPN. It might just be 1 year. That 2024 Bucks team. What a mess. Oh, boy, he played, 1 year, 23-24. So he came to the Bucks the same year Dame Lillard did, the same year they fired Bud and hired Adrian Griffin. Then they had a revolt against Adrian Griffin, then Doc Rivers gets parachuted in. So Malik Beasley was investigated last year, and I guess is likely going to be found guilty at this point of gambling on games and gambling on player props. That is the easiest way if you are going to try to fix something. If you're an NBA player, a Major League Baseball player, an NFL player, in the world of player props, that is the one that is very simple to fix. I think it's very hard in a team sport to fix a game. Like, you have to have a lot of people, like the Black Sox, and then they got sent to Kevin Costner's cornfield. If you're going to blow an entire game or a series or whatever, you've got to have a lot of people on the same page. One person cannot make that happen, but in the world of player props, where for every game, every NBA game, every Major League Baseball game, every NFL game, every player has a player prop. Like Malik Beasley, over under 13.5 points tonight, over under 2.5 rebounds tonight. So if you're an individual player, that is where you can fix things. That is where you can kind of take some control and you can tell your buddies or your bookie, bet the under on me on 14.5 points tonight, and then you only take 2 shots and boom, the under hits. So the player props, in general, gambling has probably gotten too interwoven with professional sports. Like, how could we see this coming? How could this have happened with FanDuel and DraftKings updating live odds during the games? How did we end up in a world where players are trying to gamble during games? How did this happen? Well, probably accepting millions and millions and billions of sponsorship dollars from both FanDuel and DraftKings and having them sponsor the games. That's probably the first domino in the how did we get here 30 for 30 on players betting on player props in games. But I do think the player prop part of it is the much harder thing to regulate or watch out for because it's so individual. And I think it turns out that's what Malik Beasley was doing. So somebody went out there, found the indictment against Malik Beasley, found one of the games where he was supposed to have rigged one of his player props, And this guy went through the entire game and found all of these instances. So it sounds like Malik Beasley had the over on his rebounding total, which was, 3.5 rebounds in that game? And I'm guessing he probably told his buddies to put a lot of money on the over on my rebounds. Now, why you would bet the over, I don't know, but it doesn't seem like Malik Beasley is maybe the sharpest guy in the sharpest knife in the drawer. It seems to me, if I were to fix something in the gambling world on player props, the under seems like the easiest part. Bet the under on 4.5 rebounds. Bet the under on 15.5 points. Because you can control that. You can kind of act like you're going for a rebound and not get it. You can miss a shot badly. You can control that more than you can control the over. But this Twitter account did a masterful job of going through this game and looking at all of the instances where it is clear that Malik Beasley is absolutely desperate to get one more rebound.
Is the rebound.
So this is going to be a not safe for work, by the way.
Now we're under a minute, and Beasley still needs that rebound. And he's doing everything he can to get that rebound. Whether that means not guarding James Harden, whether that means running into Harden. Look at him here. He wants that board, man. He just can't get it. So now we're down to 24 seconds. Beasley is going to pass this shot up. Pat Connaughton is going to shoot a 3. Beasley from 40 feet out is going to crash the board. So the Clippers are going to advance the ball. They're going to shoot a 3 here. 14 seconds left, up by 7, and Malik Beasley is going to fly out of the coal mines to get this rebound. And then look at his reaction when this ball goes in. He's like, fuck, man. And then Dame is going to be like, hello? The game is still going on, man.
That's my favorite part, and it's so true. Like, there's less than a minute left, and he's going to end up a rebound short, and he's hoping that guy misses that shot, but he hits it, and then his whole body just slumps over, and he forgets that he has to inbound the ball. That is my favorite part of whoever this guy is on Twitter breaking this down. Hello, the game is still going on.
When this ball goes in, he's like, fuck, man. And then Dame is going to be like, hello? The game is still going on, man. Wake the fuck up. It's not my fault. You're going to prison! And then we fast forward. The game is over. There are 8 seconds left. And Malik Beasley is going to get the biggest legacy rebound of his life.
Yeah.
And he's going to cash his rebound over with 0.3 seconds left.
0.3 seconds left. And at that point, the Bucks were up by 7, and the Clippers didn't even have to shoot that. Didn't even matter, but they did. They missed it, and he got the rebound. And he does look like a man. When you see him secure that rebound, it's like he's getting a puppy out of the river that he's been trying to save. I mean, he is cherishing that basketball that he got that rebound in the final second. Yeah, I don't know why it's so much easier to fix the under. I don't get fixing the over. Fixing the under. Now, maybe there were better odds, I guess, but if you're fixing it, it doesn't matter. It's not gambling if you know you're going to win, to quote Alan in The Hangover. So maybe the under was minus 120 and the over was plus 130 that he would hit the over. And so you get more of a return. Maybe that's why he did it. But if you know you can go under, it's easy to go under and try to make it look as in the flow of the game as possible. I don't know why you would try to fix the over. So they also released a bunch of text messages from Malik Beasley that really incriminate him in this too. So I think he is going to federal prison for not minimum security prison. I think he's probably going to federal prison for a while. What's wild too is he was about to sign when this investigation started. So he went from Milwaukee to Detroit the next year, had a great year in Detroit. When this came out, he was about to sign like a 4-year, $50 million deal. How in the world do you get so wrapped up in fixing player props? Like, they're going to pay you $50 million to play this sport as a profession. You're fixing games and fixing player props for $10K, $20K. They're paying you $50 million. Just take the money they're paying you to play. What more could you need? But as a degenerate gambler, I guess I can kind of understand. You do chase that high. Winning a bet is a lot of fun. So I guess I do sort of understand where he's coming from there. But it makes less sense, I think, for the everyman. For somebody like me, if you hit a parlay and you win $2 or $3 grand, that is not life-changing money, but that's quarterly changing money. You win $5 grand in the 3 or 4 month stretch. That can kind of change the way you live your life. For Malik Beasley, if you're making $50 million on a 4-year contract, is winning $25K on a rebounding prop bet changing your life? I mean, it's fun to win. I get that. But is that dopamine hitting the same when you've got all that money coming in anyway? I guess it must be. but he's in a lot of trouble. Now, that game is one of the first games Doc coached after they fired Adrian Griffin and parachuted in Doc. That 2023-24 Bucks team is, there's a lot going on there. Fire Bud, trade Drew, bring in Dame, hire Griffin, fire Griffin, bring in Doc. Malik's fixing games. Giannis is hurt at the end of the year. What a disaster that 2023-24 team was. But that 2-minute, and that was only half of the 2-minute video. It's such a good video breakdown of one of the games that he was alleged to have fixed his rebounding prop. And it's so obvious when you go through the game and that guy points out all those big junctures. It's so clear he has money on it. All right, that'll do it for us here on your Monday morning. We'll get back after it Friday. Regular week this week. We will break down the 5-game set against the Cardinals, see what happens with the Brewers this week. Any Bucks news now, I think, as the official league year has begun. Maybe we'll get our goodbye from Giannis today. We'll talk about that. We're still a little ways away from training camp. Any Packer news, of course, we'll discuss that too on Friday. Have a happy, safe work week. We'll chat with you then.